I had always lived a simple life. My name is Robert Hayes, 62 years old, retired electrician from Ohio. 2 months ago, everything changed. I won $62 million in the state lottery. 62 million. It still feels unreal when I say it. But instead of shouting it to the world, I made a decision. I told no one. Not even my wife. Not my daughter Emily, not my son Mark. I wanted to see who they really were without the money in the picture. You see, I'd worked my whole life, and in the past few years I noticed how distant my kids had become. Calls became rare, visits even rarer. It felt like I was slowly fading out of their lives. So I thought, what if I test them? What if I act like I'm broke and see if they'd still care? 3 weeks after claiming the prize, I started my test. I told my family that my small pension was delayed and I was struggling with bills. My car had broken down and I didn't have the money to fix it. My daughter Emily was busy planning her big wedding. I asked her if she could lend me $500 just until next month. She looked uncomfortable. "Dad, I've got so many wedding expenses. Maybe Mark can help." Mark, my son, said, "Dad, I'm kind of tight right now, too. Maybe sell your tools or something." They both sounded the same, polite but distant. I thanked him anyway. But deep down it hurt. They didn't even ask if I had food at home. A week later, I went to Emily's house unannounced. She opened the door, looked surprised, then sighed. "Dad, you should have called. We're having the caterer over." I told her I just wanted to see how she was. She smiled awkwardly, then went back to her guests. I sat alone on her couch for an hour while people walked by me like I was invisible. That night I drove home and decided I wouldn't attend her wedding. But something inside me said I had to. Maybe she'd realize what she'd done. Later, on her wedding day, I put on my old gray suit. I arrived quietly and sat at the back of the hall. Emily looked stunning, radiant in her white dress. For a moment, I felt proud. Then came the part that broke me. When it was time for the father-daughter dance, she smiled at the guests and said, "My dad couldn't afford to contribute, but he's here today, and that means something." People laughed softly. She didn't mean it cruelly, but it felt cruel. My face burned. I forced a smile. The band played, and we danced. She whispered, "Don't be mad, Dad, it's just a joke." I said nothing, but in that moment, I knew. The test was over. 3 days later, I invited both Emily and Mark to dinner at my house. I had the winning ticket framed on the table. When they arrived, I told them the truth.
3 days passed after Emily's wedding, but the humiliation still echoed in my head. Every laugh, every whisper from that hall replayed in my mind. I had planned the dinner for tonight, a calm, quiet family gathering. I cooked their favorite dishes, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and apple pie, the same way I used to when they were kids. The framed lottery ticket sat on the dining table, hidden under a folder. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. I wanted to know if there was still love left in my family, even after everything. At exactly 7 p.m., Emily and Mark arrived, smiling as if nothing had happened. Emily kissed my cheek. "Dad, I'm so glad you invited us. I was worried you were mad about the joke at the wedding." I smiled faintly. "No, Emily, I'm not mad. I just wanted to have dinner and talk." Mark sat down, glancing at the table. "Wow, smells great, Dad. You didn't have to do all this." We started eating. The conversation was shallow. Work, weather, social media, nothing that truly mattered. They didn't ask how I was doing, didn't ask if I was okay after the wedding. They didn't even notice how quiet I had become. After dinner, I stood up and said, "Before you go, there's something you should see." I placed the framed ticket on the table and removed the folder. Their eyes widened. Emily frowned. "What's that?" "That," I said, softly, "is a winning ticket for $62 million. The silence in the room was sharp. Mark blinked, confused. You're joking." "No," I replied. "I claimed it a month ago." Emily's face turned pale. "Wait, you mean you've had that all this time, and you didn't tell us?" "No, I didn't. I wanted to see if you'd care for me without the money." Mark leaned forward. "That's insane, Dad! You lied to us!" I looked at him calmly. "Did I? Or did I just give you a chance to show who you really are?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, I didn't mean to humiliate you at the wedding. It was supposed to be funny." I nodded slowly. Funny to everyone but me. I turned toward the window, staring at the dark street. When I was fixing wires in strangers' houses for 30 years, all I ever wanted was a close family. I thought if I worked hard enough, loved you enough, that would be enough. But after I retired, you both drifted away. You visited when it was convenient. You called when you needed something. So yes, I tested you, and you failed." Mark stood up angrily. "Come on, Dad. We're not bad people. We just have our lives." I smiled sadly. "And I have mine now." I took a deep breath. That money, it changes everything. I've already decided how to use it. Emily wiped her eyes. "Dad, please, don't shut us out." I looked at her with softness and pain. "Emily, I love you. You're my daughter. But love doesn't mean blind forgiveness." She looked down, ashamed. I continued. "Half of that money is going into a trust for people who truly need it. Veterans, single parents, students who can't afford college. The rest I'll use to travel. Maybe see the ocean one last time." Mark scoffed. "So you're just giving it away after everything you went through?" I looked at him directly. "It's my choice, son. You had yours too." He didn't respond. The silence in the room grew heavier. Emily started sobbing quietly. She whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry. I really am. I never thought you'd take it that way." I placed my hand on hers. "Emily, sometimes you only see the truth when it's too late." For a few minutes, no one spoke. The clock ticked, and I could hear my own heartbeat. Then, surprisingly, Mark broke the silence. "Dad, maybe we can start over. I mean, if you'll let us." His voice cracked slightly. I could see a hint of genuine guilt in his eyes. Maybe he meant it. I said quietly, "Starting over doesn't need money. It needs effort." He nodded. "Then I'll try." I smiled faintly. "We'll see." As they left that night, I sat alone, looking at the ticket on the table. I had imagined that moment so many times, revealing the secret, seeing their reactions, but instead of satisfaction, I felt a deep emptiness. Money couldn't fix what was broken. It could buy comfort, but not closeness. I walked to the fireplace and held the framed ticket in my hand. The fire crackled softly, its glow lighting the wrinkles on my face. I whispered to myself, maybe this was never about testing them. Maybe it was about finding peace. I didn't burn the ticket, not yet, but I knew what I would do with it soon. I would leave behind something better than wealth, a legacy of truth. The next morning, as the sun rose over the quiet street, I made a call to a charity foundation. It was time to turn my pain into purpose. And as I spoke to the woman on the phone, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. The morning after the dinner, I woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet, sunlight slipping through the curtains, falling on the framed ticket that still sat on the table. I hadn't touched it all night. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Dad, can I come over today?" I didn't reply right away. Instead, I made my coffee, sat on the porch, and watched the street come alive. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about forgiveness. Around noon, Emily arrived, alone, holding a small box. She looked nervous. "Dad, I brought you something," she said softly. Inside the box was an old photo of us, me holding her on my shoulders at the county fair when she was 5. "I found it last night," she whispered. "You looked some happy. I don't remember the last time I saw you smile like that." Her voice trembled. "I don't want to lose you, Dad." I stayed silent for a moment, staring at that photo. It was more powerful than any apology. "Emily," I said gently, "love isn't proven with words or money. It's shown when no one's watching." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know. I was selfish, caught up in my own world. I thought you'd always be there, no matter what." I sighed. "I will be, as long as you keep trying." She smiled faintly. "Then let me start today." She spent the whole afternoon helping me clean the yard, fixing the porch swing, and laughing like she used to. For a few hours, it felt like the old days. That night, after she left, Mark called. His voice was different, softer. "Dad, I heard about the charity thing. I've been thinking, maybe I could help you with it. I know some organizations that need real support." I paused, surprised. "You sure about that?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I realized something. I've been chasing money my whole life, but it never made me proud. Maybe this will." I didn't say much, but after we hung up, I sat back, staring at the stars through the window. Maybe, just maybe, the test had a deeper purpose than I thought. Not to punish them, but to wake them up. The next week, I met with the foundation director, a kind woman named Margaret. She helped me set up the Hayes Fund, a trust to help families in crisis. We talked for hours about what it could become: scholarships, emergency aid, food programs. As she spoke, I realized I was finally doing something that mattered, the kind of thing that would live on when I was gone. That evening, Emily and Mark came over again, this time together. No fancy clothes, no expectations, just family. We ate pizza, laughed about old times, and for once, no one mentioned money. It was peaceful, simple, real. As they were leaving, Emily hugged me tightly. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't care about the money anymore. I just want my father back." I smiled and said, "Then you've already got him." After they left, I stood at the doorway for a long time, watching their car disappear into the night. The framed ticket was still on the table, but now it didn't represent wealth. It represented a lesson. Money can test hearts, but love reveals truth. I turned off the lights, sat in my chair, and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt peace, not because I had $62 million, but because I finally had my family back. Yet deep down, I knew life wasn't done testing us. The real challenge was about to begin, because the world would soon find out about the money, and not everyone would react the same way. 2 weeks passed since that peaceful night, and life finally felt normal again. I spent my mornings gardening, answering calls from the charity foundation, and occasionally meeting families we had helped. The smile on their faces was worth more than any dollar. Emily would visit often, bringing me home-cooked meals, and Mark started volunteering at the fund, handling logistics like he'd found a new purpose. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my children back. But life has a strange way of testing peace. Just when you think it's settled, something stirs it up. It started with a knock on my door one morning. When I opened it, a man in a gray suit stood there holding a microphone. "Mr. Hayes?" he asked politely. "I'm with Channel 7 News. We received information that you're the recent winner of the $62 million state lottery. Could we have a few words?" I froze. My heart skipped. "Who told you that?" I asked quietly. He smiled apologetically. "I'm not sure, sir, but the Lottery Commission confirmed your claim publicly this morning." Publicly.
That word hit me like thunder. I didn't say a word, just closed the door slowly and leaned against it, breathing hard. I turned on the TV, and there it was. My name, my face, my house, plastered across every local channel. Retired electrician wins $62 million, plans to start charity, the headline said. Within hours, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Old neighbors, distant relatives, even strangers started calling, texting, begging. Some congratulated, some demanded. It was chaos. By evening, there were cars parked outside my house, people taking photos through my window. I shut the curtains, heart pounding, wondering how it all went so wrong. At night, Emily and Mark rushed over, both shaken. "Dad, we didn't say anything, I swear," Emily cried. Mark nodded. "We only talked about the foundation. Maybe someone from there leaked it." I sighed heavily. It doesn't matter who. What matters is what we do now. We sat in silence for a long moment, hearing the distant hum of reporters outside. "Dad," Emily said softly, "we'll handle this together, okay? You're not alone." I looked at her and smiled faintly. I was never alone, Emily. I just forgot what family really meant. But the trouble had just begun. The next morning, I received an envelope slipped under my door. No name, no return address, just a short note inside. "You think you can buy peace with charity? Wait till the truth about your money comes out." My hands trembled as I read it. Someone knew something. But what truth? I sat down, my mind racing. Had someone found out about how I claimed the prize? Or maybe something darker, someone from my past? I didn't know. Later that day, when I arrived at the foundation office, Margaret looked worried. "Robert," she said carefully, "we just got an anonymous call. Someone threatened to expose financial irregularities if we don't pay them off." I frowned. "That's impossible. Everything's clean." "I know, but they sounded serious." Suddenly, the piece I'd built began to crack. Emily called me later, voice shaking. "Dad, people online are saying you faked the charity for tax reasons." I sighed. "Don't believe everything they say, sweetheart." But deep down, I felt the storm coming closer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through my house, looking at the photos on the walls, memories of laughter, of better times. The money that once felt like a blessing now felt like a curse. I whispered to myself, maybe I was wrong to keep it. Maybe I was wrong to win it at all. But then, something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to let greed or rumors destroy what I had rebuilt. I called Margaret first thing in the morning. "We're not hiding," I said firmly. "We'll show every document, every record. We'll prove this fund is real. Let them see who we are." She agreed, though I could hear the fear in her voice. By noon, the media frenzy had grown worse. Cameras outside, reporters shouting questions about fraud, betrayal, corruption, and through it all, Emily and Mark stood beside me, holding their heads high. Maybe for the first time, they truly understood what integrity looked like. The following day, I decided to hold a public press conference at the foundation office. Not to defend my money, but to defend my name. As I stood before the flashing cameras, microphones pointed at my face, I took a deep breath and said, "I didn't ask for this attention. I didn't win the lottery to become a celebrity. I wanted to make a difference. If the world wants proof, I'll show it. But remember, money doesn't change people. It only reveals who they really are." The room went silent for a moment, the crowd unsure how to respond. Then, slowly, a few claps started, spreading through the audience. Maybe, just maybe, the truth would win this time. But as I walked off the stage, a man in the crowd caught my eye. Tall, dark suit, familiar face from years ago. He smiled coldly, and my heart sunk. Because I knew him, and if he was here, it meant my past was finally catching up. That night, after the press conference, I couldn't sleep. The image of that man in the crowd wouldn't leave my mind. I knew that face. His name was Leonard Price, a man I used to work with almost 30 years ago at a construction company.
Back then, Leonard was always scheming, always looking for shortcuts, always in trouble. I hadn't seen him since he got fired for stealing company equipment. Seeing him there, smiling like a predator, made my blood run cold. Early the next morning, I got a message on my phone. No number, just a picture. It was Leonard, standing outside my house holding up a piece of paper. The message read, "You owe me, old friend." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I didn't owe him anything, or so I thought, but then it hit me. When I bought the lottery ticket, I'd done it at a small gas station off Route 19. I remember that day clearly because the clerk had messed up the first print. He gave me 2 tickets by accident. One I paid for, the other he threw away. Or at least I thought he did. What if Leonard found that discarded ticket somehow? What if he was claiming that the winning ticket was his? My thoughts were spinning. Around noon, he called. His voice was smooth, mocking. "Robert, old buddy, congrats on your win. Must feel nice, huh? 62 million, a big house, cameras, all that fame. Shame if someone were to tell the world that ticket wasn't really yours." I clenched my jaw. "You're bluffing." He chuckled. "Maybe, or maybe I've got proof. The gas station's old security footage. You remember how you paid cash? I still got connections there. Pay me 10 million and I keep my mouth shut." My hand trembled. 10 million. I could lose everything. My foundation, my family's trust, my name. "You won't get a cent," I said firmly. "Then I'll see you on the news again," he laughed and hung up. That night, I told Emily and Mark everything. Emily was terrified. "Dad, this man sounds dangerous. What if he really has something?" Mark slammed his hand on the table. "We can't let him ruin you. Let's hire a lawyer. Get ahead of this." I nodded, but deep down, I knew Leonard wasn't just after money. He wanted revenge. Over the next few days, things got worse. Anonymous emails flooded the foundation's inbox claiming I'd stolen the winning ticket. A fake story started spreading online. Donations began dropping. Even Margaret looked worried. "Robert," she said softly, "if this continues, the fund could collapse." I felt cornered. The life I had rebuilt, the peace I had earned, was slipping away again. One evening, as I was locking up the foundation office, I saw Leonard waiting outside under the streetlight, smoking. "You've got 3 days," he said coldly. "After that, I go public." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You'll regret it if you do." He smirked. "We'll see." That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't think. Then an idea came to me, dangerous but necessary. If Leonard had footage, I needed to see it. I drove to that same gas station the next morning, parked quietly, and went inside. The clerk was an older man now, gray hair, same tired eyes. "You remember me?" I asked. He squinted. "Yeah, you're the guy from years back, the one who won big." I nodded. "Do you still have old security footage from that week?" He laughed. "That old system broke long ago. We wiped everything before upgrading." Relief flooded through me. That meant Leonard was bluffing. I thanked him, bought a coffee, and drove straight to the police station. Detective Warren listened carefully as I explained everything, including the threats. He frowned. "Sounds like extortion to me. If he contacts you again, record it. We'll handle it." I went home feeling lighter, but cautious. That night, Leonard called again, sounding confident. "Time's up, Robert. Ready to pay?" I hit record and said calmly, "Funny thing, Leonard. I talked to the police. Seems extortion's a serious crime in this state." There was silence on the line. Then he snarled, "You think you can scare me?" "No," I said quietly, "but the truth can." The next morning, detectives arrested him outside his motel. They found forged documents, fake receipts, and messages he'd sent to journalists pretending to be me. It was over, or at least that's what I thought. A week later, when I stepped outside my house, a single envelope lay on my porch. Inside was a note in shaky handwriting. "You think he was the only one." My heart sank. I looked around the empty street, but I could feel it. The story wasn't over yet. Someone else was out there, watching, waiting, and this time, it wasn't about money at all.
3 nights passed since that strange envelope appeared on my porch, and I hadn't slept properly once. Every sound outside felt suspicious. The crunch of gravel, the faint hum of a car engine idling too long. I'd changed all the locks, installed cameras, even asked Detective Warren to increase patrols around my neighborhood. But whoever had sent that note, they knew how to stay invisible. On the fourth morning, a black SUV parked across the street. No one got out. It just sat there for hours. I watched from behind the curtain, heart pounding. Finally, around sunset, a tall woman stepped out, wearing a dark coat and sunglasses. She didn't look like a reporter or a neighbor. She looked deliberate. She walked straight to my porch, placed a small envelope on the step, and left without a word. I waited until she drove off before picking it up. Inside was a flash drive and a short message written in neat cursive handwriting. You should have told the truth about the day you bought the ticket. I sat at my desk, staring at those words, my pulse thundering. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. A flash video file appeared, labeled 19rootfootage.mp4. My throat went dry. I clicked play. The grainy footage showed the old gas station, the same one where I'd bought the ticket. I watched myself walk in, buy the ticket, and leave. But right after that, another man entered. He looked at the counter, spoke to the clerk, then took the receipt from the trash. The camera angle wasn't clear, but his face, it wasn't Leonard. It was someone else. Someone I hadn't seen in decades. My younger brother, David. My heart stopped. David and I hadn't spoken in 20 years, not since our falling out over our parents' inheritance. I'd thought he'd moved to California. Why was he here that day? And how did he get this footage? My mind was spinning. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the paused video. Maybe David had taken that discarded ticket and kept it. Maybe he thought it was his all along. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. I answered. A familiar voice came through, calm but cold. Hello, brother. I froze. David? You didn't expect to hear from me, did you? He said quietly. I saw your face on TV. 62 million, huh? You always did have the luck. What do you want? I asked cautiously. He chuckled. Just what's fair. Half. Half, I said incredulously. You weren't there when I bought it, David. Weren't I? He said slowly. Watch the video again. Look at the timestamp. The ticket you claimed wasn't the one you bought. It was the second print, the one I picked up. My breath caught. Could that be true? The memories of that day blurred in my mind. The clerk printing 2 tickets, one slipping onto the counter, me picking one, him tossing the other. Had I taken the wrong one? I'd never even checked. My hand started shaking. You can't prove that, I said. Maybe not yet, but the footage does raise questions, and I've already shared copies with some friends in the media. I'll give you 1 week to make this right, Robert. Then he hung up. The next morning, I went back to the gas station again, desperate for answers. The clerk looked startled when I mentioned my brother's name. David? Yeah, I remember him. Came here the same day after you left. Said he dropped something. I didn't think much of it. My stomach turned. So it was true. David had been there. I drove home, mind racing, torn between fear and guilt. Maybe I hadn't stolen anything intentionally, but if there was even a chance that ticket had been his, what did that make me? That night, I called Emily and Mark. I told them everything about David, the footage, the call. They were stunned. Emily whispered, Dad, you think he'll really go to the media? I sighed. He doesn't bluff. He never did. Mark leaned forward. Then we fight. We show the truth. But the truth was the problem. I wasn't sure what the truth was anymore. That same night, I received an email with the subject line, You've got 6 days. Attached was another video, this time showing David at some diner talking to a journalist. The message read,
You have until Friday to settle, or this goes public. I sat there for hours, staring at the screen, feeling the walls close in. I wasn't scared of losing money anymore. I was scared of losing the little respect I'd rebuilt. If this story came out, even if I was innocent, people would doubt me forever. My foundation would crumble. Emily and Mark would face humiliation, and everything I'd built would vanish again. I looked at the framed ticket on my shelf, the symbol of my rise and my ruin. Maybe the universe was forcing me to make a choice, truth or peace. But for the first time in my life, I didn't know which one to choose. Outside, the wind howled softly through the trees, and in that sound, I could almost hear my brother's voice whispering, "You can't hide from me, Robert." And I knew then this wasn't about money anymore. It was about redemption, about the past we'd buried too long ago, finally clawing its way back to the surface.
When Emily and Mark arrived at my house that evening, they looked a little nervous. I hadn't invited them over for dinner in years. My old wooden table was set with candles, and in the middle of it lay a small black frame with something inside that caught their eyes. "What's that, Dad?" Emily asked, pointing to the frame. I smiled quietly. "Something I've been meaning to show you both for a while," I said. Mark laughed. "Looks serious. What is it, your retirement certificate?" I shook my head, sliding the frame toward them. Both leaned closer, and Emily's eyes widened first. "No way. That's a lottery ticket." "That's right," I said softly. "The winning ticket. $62 million. The silence that followed was thick, almost heavy. I could hear the clock ticking in the background. Mark blinked rapidly, then looked at me. "You're kidding, right?" "No, son. I claimed it 2 months ago, and not a soul knew until now." Emily covered her mouth, her face turning pale. You didn't tell anyone? Not even Mom?" "Not even her," I replied, my voice calm. She looked confused, then angry. "Why would you keep something like that a secret?" I leaned back in my chair, feeling a mix of sadness and satisfaction. "Because I wanted to know who you both really were," I said. "If I told you right away, the money would have changed everything. I wanted to see how much of your love was real." Emily frowned, tears filling her eyes. "Dad, that's not fair," she said. Mark, however, sat in silence, staring at the ticket like it was a ghost. "Fair?" I asked quietly. "What's fair about a daughter who laughs about her father's poverty in front of hundreds of guests? What's fair about a son who can't lend $50 to the man who raised him?" Emily started to cry. "Dad, I didn't mean it like that. It was just a joke. I swear I didn't think—" I interrupted gently. "You didn't think because you didn't care." The words hung in the air like smoke. She buried her face in her hands. Mark finally spoke, his voice low. "So, what now? You're cutting us off?" I looked at both of them, their faces pale under the warm kitchen light. "No," I said, "I'm not cutting anyone off. But things won't be the same." I stood up and walked to the counter, where 2 envelopes sat. I handed one to each of them. "Inside is $50,000, I said. "Consider it a lesson in humility, because love without compassion is just convenience." Mark looked embarrassed but mumbled a thank you. Emily just sat there, tears dripping onto her envelope. I sat down again, folding my hands. "You see, kids, I worked for 40 years, climbing poles, fixing wires, in storms. I didn't do it for money. I did it because I wanted you to have a better life. But lately, I realized money doesn't buy love. It only shows who's willing to sell it. Emily reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Dad, I'm sorry. I really am." I nodded, but didn't speak. Her tears looked real this time, not the kind you shed for guilt, but the kind you shed for shame. After a while, she whispered, "Can I hug you?" I nodded again. She stood up and came around the table, hugging me tightly. For the first time in years, I felt her warmth without a screen or a schedule between us. Mark stood too, slowly, and joined the hug. For a brief second, I thought maybe, just maybe, this had all been worth it. But deep inside, I wasn't sure if they were hugging me or the $62 million that now stood between us.
The next morning, the house was silent, but my mind wasn't. I couldn't sleep all night, replaying every word from last evening over and over. I sat by the kitchen window, the sunrise spilling gold across the table where the framed lottery ticket still lay. It looked meaningless now, just a piece of paper that had torn my family apart and stitched it back together in the same breath. I made coffee and thought about my wife, Linda. She had passed away 6 years ago from cancer. She used to say, "Robert, the way your kids treat you will be the reflection of how much warmth you gave them." I used to think she was wrong. But now I realized she was right, and maybe I hadn't given them enough warmth since she died. I became quiet, distant, and they followed my silence with their own. That morning, Emily showed up again. Her eyes were swollen and her voice soft. "Dad, can we talk?" I nodded. She sat down and placed the envelope I'd given her on the table. "I don't want this. Not now. Maybe someday if I earn it." Her voice cracked. I felt a lump in my throat. She told me she had stayed up all night thinking about how she had treated me at the wedding and how her words might have made me feel small in front of strangers. I didn't say anything at first, just listened. Then she said something that stayed with me forever. "Dad, I don't care about the money. I just don't want to lose you again." For a moment, I couldn't hold back my tears. I reached out and held her hand. The warmth felt real this time, not forced or guilty. I whispered, "Then promise me you'll never measure love in dollars again." She nodded through her tears. A few hours later, Mark came by too. He wasn't emotional like Emily. He was practical. "Dad, I've been thinking. I messed up. I shouldn't have brushed you off when you asked for help." He looked down, ashamed. "But I want to change. I want to do things differently." I looked at him carefully. He wasn't lying. I could tell. He asked if he could help me manage the money, since I was getting old and not used to handling such big numbers. I laughed for the first time in weeks and said, "Son, I've already got a plan." He raised an eyebrow. "What plan?" I stood up and took 2 folded documents from my desk. "These are trust papers," I said. "Half the money's going into a foundation for kids who can't afford college. The rest will be split evenly between you two when I'm gone. But until then, not a cent." Mark blinked. "Dad, are you serious?" "As serious as a fart attack," I smiled. "If you want to be part of it, come help me build the foundation. I want both of you to work for it, not just wait for it." He nodded slowly and said, "Then I'm in." That evening, we all sat in the backyard for dinner for the first time in years. No fancy decorations, no music, no guests, just family and laughter. The sun dipped low, and fireflies began to glow around us. Emily laughed and said, "Maybe money didn't change us, Dad. Maybe it reminded us who we used to be." I looked at her and smiled. Maybe so. In the following months, the foundation took shape.
We called it the Linda Hope Fund, named after my late wife. Kids started applying for scholarships, and every letter we received reminded me why life was worth more than a lottery ticket. Mark handled operations, Emily managed community outreach, and I just sat in my rocking chair and watched them work together like the family Linda always wanted us to be. One night, Emily came over with a photo album. She had printed pictures from her wedding and handed it to me. "There's something inside for you," she said. I opened it and found a new photo, me and her dancing at the wedding, framed perfectly beneath a caption she had written herself. "For the man who taught me that love is richer than gold." I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. I hugged her and whispered, "You finally earned it." Years later, when I was gone, the foundation grew beyond anything I imagined. But what mattered most wasn't the millions spent. It was the love rebuilt brick by brick through honesty, humility, and forgiveness. And sometimes, on quiet mornings, when the sun shines across an empty kitchen table, I imagine Linda smiling, whispering, "Told you so."